10 years after the seven deadly sins allegedly massacred holy knights, a young woman in rusty armor collapses at the Boar Hat Bar. She's revealed to be Elizabeth, the third Princess of Lions, who's searching for the sins to stop a holy knight coup against the kingdom. When holy knights led by Twigo pursue Elizabeth, the bar owner protects her. After a brief fight, the owner reveals himself as Meliodas, the dragon sin of wrath and leader of the seven deadly sins. He invites Elizabeth to join him and Hawk, his talking pig companion, in their travels, and they escape together on Hawk's mother while Twigo calls for reinforcements. After Elizabeth becomes a waitress at the Boar Hat, they visit Burnia village, where Holy Knight Gilthunder has cursed their water supply with an immovable sword. A young orphan named Mead, who had pranked Gilthunder and falsely claimed friendship with the seven deadly sins, attempts to remove it but fails. Meliodas easily pulls out the sword, restoring the village's water and helping Mead reconcile with the villagers. When Gilthunder learns of this, he throws a spear from 11.7 kilometers away at the village. Meliodas catches and returns it, revealing his identity to Gilthunder. To avoid confrontation, they decide to flee to the Forest of White Dreams, where another member of the seven deadly sins, someone with a serpent tattoo, appears to be sleeping. In the Forest of White Dreams, the group encounters prankster imps who can shapeshift, leading them to Diane, the serpent's sin of envy. After an emotional reunion with Meliodas and some jealousy over Elizabeth, Diane reveals what happened 10 years ago. The sins were summoned by great holy knight Zaratras, only to find him dead and themselves branded as traitors. Gilthunder, a holy knight and Zaratras's son, confronts the group and immobilizes them with electricity. He reveals he wants revenge for his father's death. Though Gilthunder initially gains the upper hand against Meliodas, the fight takes an interesting turn when Meliodas uses his apparent defeat to learn the locations of two other sins: Ban, Fox's sin of greed, and King, Grizzly's sin of sloth, before springing back into battle. After learning Ban and King's locations from Gilthunder, Meliodas tries to flee the battle. When Gilthunder attacks, Diane intervenes and throws him into a chapel where he shows his disregard for injured civilians. The group decides to head to Bast Dungeon to find Ban since it's closer, despite the presence of the weird fangs there. However, Meliodas collapses from his battle wound. Meanwhile, at Bast Dungeon, Ban is shown imprisoned but seemingly unfazed, humming despite being pierced by metal rods. The weird fangs are stationed there specifically to keep him contained. Meliodas and group later arrive at Dalmary Town, where Meliodas is treated by Dana. Diane and Elizabeth begin to argue and discuss about the aspects in which they envy each other. They are suddenly attacked by the Holy Knight Frisia, who tries to destroy the entire town along with the deadly sins, but Diane quickly destroys all of her insects. Concurrently, Ban escapes from his cell in the Basti dungeon and is stopped by Jericho, who tries to subdue him. Dana unexpectedly reveals that the medicine Meliodas drank was a deadly poison as Galgius appears out of the blue. Galgius appears and attempts to take Elizabeth and Meliodas' sword back to Lions. Whilst attempting to take the sword, Meliodas awakens with no effect of the poison showing, proceeding to blast an aura that causes Galgius to make a hasty retreat. Meliodas and Elizabeth set off to Baston afterwards. However, they are stopped by a confused Diane, who, after hearing the sound of a bell, attacks the group. They try to run away from the berserk Diane, involving a pair of shepherds along the way. However, Meliodas soon succumbs to the same bell and begins to fight Diane. Meanwhile, in Bastard Dungeon, Ban is shown wandering around after having dealt with Jericho. It is not long before he is found by Jude of the Weird Fangs, who promptly stabs Ban in the chest. Elizabeth helps break Meliodas and Diane free from a mind control spell by knocking off Ruin's bell, though she's injured in the process. Ruin, who had been disguised as a shepherd, attacks her but is defeated by Meliodas, while Diane defeats Frisia. At the dungeon, Ban survives Jude's attack and defeats him. When Meliodas' group arrives, Galgius traps them with an Eternal Seal spell, but the spell is broken by the destructive power of Ban and Meliodas' reunion. Later, as they celebrate at Dana's, an ominous sign appears in the sky. Meanwhile, in Lions, it's revealed that King is alive and working with Gilthunder, complicating the search for the seven deadly sins. The group heads to the capital of the dead, searching for King. During the journey, Ban has flashbacks about meeting Elaine, a mysterious girl who protected the Fountain of Youth, and how he gave up trying to obtain immortality after learning it would kill the forest. In a nearby village, they learn from two siblings that entry to the capital of the dead requires sharing a precious memory with the deceased. King appears and attacks Ban, but flees upon seeing Diane. Ban's memory of Elaine grants the group access to the capital of the dead, where Ban chases after what appears to be Elaine's spirit, with King secretly following. Meanwhile, a female holy knight discovers the capital's existence through the siblings. The holy knight Gila infiltrates the capital of the dead, where King, seeking revenge for his sister Elaine, petrifies Ban. However, Elaine's spirit appears and reverses the petrification, leading to revelations about Ban and Elaine's shared past. Meanwhile, Meliodas and Diane engage in battle with Gila. The fight's intensity forces Ban to join them, though even together, they struggle against her power. After witnessing Elizabeth's bravery and hearing Elaine's plea to help Ban, King finally decides to join his fellow Sins in their fight against Gila. King defeats Gila single-handedly with his sacred treasure, Chastifal. Before leaving the capital of the dead, Ban shares a final moment with Elaine, and it's revealed that Ellen and Luigi were ghosts. Later, Elizabeth's praise of King's power leads to the revelation that the other Sins would be equally formidable with their sacred treasures, prompting a search for them. Meanwhile, Hendrickson experiments with demon's blood on Jericho and Twiggo. Jericho survives and gains power, while Twiggo perishes. The Sins then travel to Vazel, where Diane's sacred treasure, Gideon, is offered as the prize in a fighting festival. Due to a ban on giants, Diane stays behind with Elizabeth, while Meliodas, Ban, and King enter the competition to reclaim her weapon. While searching for food outside Vazel, Elizabeth and Diane encounter a chicken matango mushroom creature that releases a pink smoke, mysteriously shrinking Diane to human size. At the fighting festival, 8 contestants advance to the finals. Gryamore, Matrona, actually a shrunken Diane in Elizabeth's clothes, Hauser, Taizu, Oldfart, Cain Barzad, Meliodafu, Meliodas, and Ban. In the tournament matches, Diane defeats Gryamore, revealing her transformed state. Hauser easily defeats Taizu using his powers. Cain Barzad wins against King, Oldfart, and Meliodas faces Ban in the final match. Meanwhile, Veronica and Gryamore search for Elizabeth, with Hauser joining them and learning that 3 of the contestants are actually members of the 7 deadly sins. In an intense fight, Ban steals Meliodas' powers but still loses when Meliodas displays an unsettling side of himself, crushing Ban's wrist and blasting him from the ring, concerning both King and Diane. In the semifinals, Diane faces Hauser, carefully fighting to preserve Elizabeth's borrowed clothes, and wins by turning herself into heavy metal to counter his tornado attacks. Meliodas' match against Cain reveals dark history. Cain is from Danafor, Elizabeth's birthplace, which Meliodas allegedly destroyed along with his love, Liz. After Meliodas explains he tried to protect them and promises not to fail again, Cain believes him and forfeits the match. The finals pit Meliodas against Diane, but when women in the crowd flirt with Meliodas, an angered Diane calls him a womanizer. Meanwhile, Gila, Jericho, with her new demon blood powers, and Marmus head toward Vazel.